Hello and welcome to Granada Reports, live right across the northwest.
Hello there, on the programme this evening.
Were you grooming or seeking to groom Salman Abedi into an extremist mindset?
No. First thing, I don't even have an extreme mindset myself.
He exchanged 1,000 text messages in a month with the Manchester Arena attacker, the convicted terrorist denying he radicalised the man who killed 22 people.
Much work still to do. The report from commissioners brought in to turn around crisis-hit Liverpool City Council.
Below the surface, the campaign to get the Lake District's famous lakes cleaned up.
A dream come true. How technology meant Adam could finally wave along to Liverpool's club anthem at Anfield.
And a festive fantasy has arrived here in Heaton Park. Join me later for a full illuminated weather forecast from Lightopia.
Yes, lots coming up tonight, but first, the Manchester Arena bombing was texting a convicted terrorist up to 40 times a day before he carried out his attack, killing 22 people.
Yes, Abdulrauf Abdallah from Manchester was jailed less than a year before the arena bombing for helping 3 men join Islamic State.
The inquiry's Herb Abdallah, who's now in a wheelchair after being injured fighting in Libya, had talked about martyrdom with Salman Abedi, but he denies grooming him for extremism.
Abedi had visited Abdallah in prison, and in just 1 month they'd exchanged 1,000 texts. Our correspondent Rob Smith has tonight's top story.
I swear by Allah.
Giving evidence, a convicted terrorist who says he's haunted by his friend becoming a suicide bomber. Abdulrauf Abdallah told the Arena inquiry he'd known Salman Abedi since they were children in Manchester. Abdallah was jailed in 2016 for preparing and funding terror by helping people travel to Syria. He was asked about 1,000 messages exchanged with Abedi in less than a month, some discussing martyrdom. He insisted it was about religion and lives lost fighting dictators.
Were you grooming or seeking to groom Salman Abedi into an extremist mindset?
No. First thing, I don't even have an extreme mindset myself.
You saying, I ask Allah for Shahada, which has been translated as martyrdom, and Salman Abedi replies, as we can see, ha ha ha.
The word Shahada and martyrdom is actually called Shahada. Shahada means it's like a testimony. A death that is pleased by God.
And there are repeated references to a good death and martyrdom, as we've heard. That was your relationship with Salman Abedi, wasn't it?
Not entirely. Well, there's a lot of messages about talking about an ending because of what's going on in our countries. Every day my friends were dying in Libya and Syria.
Allah willing, may both of them burn. Not a nice thing to say, is it?
Another lawyer representing bereaved families brought up a message between the pair in 2014 where Abdallah referred to 2 boxers from Liverpool. He insisted he was swearing. He didn't like boxing.
It's like, inshallah in Hargo, who cares, let them both, it's like in an English term we say, let them go to hell.
In the months before the arena bombing, as Abedi was planning it, he visited Abdallah in jail and spoke to him on a smuggled phone.
I didn't have no knowledge or idea or anything about attack.
Do you ever have any suspicion that he would become a suicide bomber?
No, no way.
Thank you very much for coming and giving your account.
Abdallah's evidence lasted into the evening before the inquiry was adjourned. It'll resume next week. Rob Smith, ITV News.
Well, next, to the council where staff in some cases were scared for their safety if they spoke about the way it was being run.
That was the level of intimidation inspectors found at Liverpool City Council.
Last December, 5 men, including the then Mayor Joe Anderson, were arrested by police investigating allegations of fraud, bribery, corruption, misconduct in public office and witness intimidation.
Earlier this year, the government was so alarmed it sent inspectors in to expose what was going wrong, and their findings are damning.
Among the most worrying issues raised were evidence of dubious contracts being awarded in the Highways Department. In the Planning Department, a lack of record keeping, with documents found in skips or even destroyed.
There was also a fundamental failure to understand basic standards expected of council staff and an environment of intimidation in which staff were not expected to ask questions.
Well, the government's appointed a team of commissioners to help the council make the drastic changes needed.
And today we got the commissioner's first report. So let's speak to our political correspondent, Leisha McNally, who's in Liverpool now. Leisha, the headline, is it a work in progress?
I think that's basically it, Elaine. 3 months of action, very neatly summed up, work in progress. Because you've outlined the immense challenge the council was facing. This was never going to be a quick fix. In fact, the commissioners have basically come out and said that it shouldn't be. This is their interim report published today, where those tasked with troubleshooting at the council found that there was a genuine desire for change, but that it was somewhat frenetic rather than purposeful and targeted. In other words, they need to slow down and get things right. So how are they doing so far? Well, earlier today I spoke to the lead commissioner and started by asking him, were things really as bad as they sounded?
Yeah, in some cases they were. Obviously, we came in informed by the best value inspection report, but it's only once you start looking under the bonnet, so to speak, that you get a good idea as to how deeply entrenched, how deeply ingrained the problems are.
In the wake of the Calla report, you said changes need to be radical and delivered at pace. What radical changes have been made?
We are not talking about a tilt on the tiller here. We're talking about some functions of the council being rebuilt. So highways, transport, regeneration. The first 3 months has seen what we might call the beginning of a stabilisation process, to look at what needs to be done here and now urgently to put things right, to deal with backlogs, to deal with urgent business, and to, as best as possible, begin to clear the decks.
You talked about a toxic culture. How confident are you that no one now is working in fear?
I'm not confident of that. There are pockets still of poor culture. We know that because people are talking to us, and we know that there are still some legacy issues in relation to poor culture practices.
Legacy issues, does that mean people who are bullies?
It appears from what people are telling us that there are still vestiges of bullying in parts of the council, and we are looking into those issues urgently. What I would say is what we're here fundamentally to do is to help the council improve, to be a better organisation in order that it can provide better services to the people of Liverpool. That's our raison d'etre. That's what we will judge our success by.
Your team has been reviewing planning decisions made in the past few years, wanting to put right anything that went wrong. Have there been any major red flags there?
So what we are not reporting on are individual projects of work. We are looking more at the general governance, the general decision making. But, oh yes, there are red flags in terms of how property transactions have not been properly considered, properly thought through.
Those are projects that will still go ahead?
Some have already been agreed. Our focus as commissioners is on making improvements for the future. It is very clear that the old regime, the old political regime, was not a regime that valued openness, transparency or rigour in terms of decision making. But we're not concentrating on that. That was then. Our focus is on the future. We are working with a new cabinet and a new mayor to make the improvements that are necessary. Look, this is a long road.
Now, I think it's important to note that the 5 men arrested in connection with the criminal investigation mentioned there, including the former mayor, Joe Anderson, have always denied any wrongdoing. It's the current mayor, Joanne Anderson, who inherited the situation. I asked what successful reform looks like to her.
we've got no choice except to go upwards in terms of what we've got to do, but meeting the demands that people have on our services, making sure we get best value out of everything we do, making sure people are included, tackling inequality, getting social value from our contracts and our procurement opportunities, and just making sure that we reach the other targets and plans that we have in place, such as net zero.
And just finally, Alicia, we can't forget the people of Liverpool. How will this process affect their daily lives?
Well, as the commissioners have said, this is at least a 3-year project, but hopefully they'll end up with a better run and more financially resilient council. Before that, though, funds are undeniably tight. The town hall has to save around £34 million next year, so there are difficult decisions ahead about exactly where those cuts will fall. Ultimately, though, this all shows exactly why it's so important that these reforms go well. Liverpool Council has to make sure it can demonstrate that it gets good value for taxpayer money before the commissioners leave, because ultimately whoever ends up making the decisions, it's the people of the city who have to live with them.
OK, still lots of questions there, Alicia. Thank you.
Well, next, and are you one of the millions of people who head to the Lake District every year to enjoy its stunning natural beauty?
Yes, I am, and I absolutely love it. Well, under the surface, all is not well, and there are now calls for the lakes to be stripped of its UNESCO World Heritage status if it can't sort out the tricky problem of sewage.
Yeah, that's said to be blighting not just the famous waterways like Windermere, but also the area's rivers.
Now, the Environment Agency says it is aware and it's already taking action. Our correspondent Hannah McNulty reports.
You know, fish are dying in the lake. Their populations aren't regenerating.
Matt Staniak began campaigning for better water quality in Windermere after finding the place he'd swam in since he was a boy, looking like this.
We've had another huge blue-green algal bloom event.
He's left his job and is living off savings in order to continue his work. After getting more than 100,000 signatures on a petition supporting him, he's now been promised a meeting with authorities.
If there is no action, if nothing comes out of this meeting, you know, if we don't get a plan in place, if we don't have investment, then the national park should be stripped of its UNESCO World Heritage status. You know, this is a massive failing to our environment. That's why we have this designation. It's an area of outstanding natural beauty and it's dying right in front of our eyes. So, you know, if I don't get this, then that's what I'll be pushing for.
The algae shows chemicals like phosphate are present and they damage the ecosystem. It's believed to be coming from a sewage plant in Ambleside, but also privately owned septic tanks and agricultural runoff. United Utilities says it's already spent millions and is working with agencies, including the Environment Agency, which has announced it's investigating the issue across the whole region.
Well, it's desperately concerning. We found out that over the last 4 years there have been only 11 prosecutions of water companies dumping sewage into waterways, and none of them were in the northwest, none of them at all. And that despite the fact that in the last year alone we have seen of the top 10 longest discharges of sewage into waterways in the UK, 5 of them were in the northwest and 3 of them were in Cumbria.
Lancaster University is set to begin a major study examining whether there's a link to bacteria found in cattle and sheep and illnesses like Crohn's disease.
We're looking at the exposure of the human population to this organism, their distribution and how it affects people with inflammatory bowel disease.
Would you swim in Windermere then? Would you recommend
it?
Yes,
I've swum in Windermere many times. That's a difficult question. It depends. In the winter, when it's cold, there's a lot more water, so it's much more dilute. In the summer, when it's dropped its levels a bit, you might get more concentrated areas of pollution. Don't swim near the effluent output pipes is an answer.
We only spotted one braving the November chill, but it is about more than swimming, with warnings that if we don't act, England's largest lake could end up ecologically dead. Hannah McNulty, ITV News, Windermere.
Well, I swam in Windermere in the summer with my kids.
Yeah, enjoy it?
I did.
Was
Little
it cold?
did I know. It was pretty cold, but it was very clear where we were.
Yeah, not for me, not for me.
Next, and Liverpool fans are celebrating their side's win over Porto in the Champions League, but last night was extra special for one fan who joined in those celebrations for the very first time.
Yeah, last night we told you about Adam Kent, whose dream was to lift his scarf to the club's anthem, You'll Never Walk Alone.
Well, that dream came true thanks to the loan of a robotic arm. Now his family are pulling out all the stops to fundraise and buy Adam a robotic limb of his own.
Our correspondent, Anne O'Connor, has more.
At the first strains of the Anfield anthem, the first time Adam Kent held his scarf up high. A lifelong ambition made real by the loan of a robotic arm that's given him hope of a more independent future.
How did it make you feel that you could do it?
I felt like I was just like everyone else, to be able to do what everyone's been able to do since he supported them, but now I got to do it.
Back at home today, he was learning more mundane tasks with the Jayco robot, while jubilating that his lucky presence gave Liverpool a win against Porto.
This might jinx everything. So I don't recall a time of being at the match when they've lost.
So when you go, they always win?
Yeah.
Well, you are the best mascot ever then, aren't you? Let's keep going.
His older brother Alex also lives with Duchenne muscular dystrophy and is less of a footy fan, but it was still special for him too.
The best part was seeing Adam being able to lift his flag above his head. Like, he's always wanted to do that.
They won't forget a moment because Adam's twin Hannah captured and savoured every moment.
Oh, it was so overwhelming. I had like my own little moments and moments that I wanted to keep in my mind for the rest of my life. So to have witnessed anything that had happened last night, it was just something that will stay with me for the rest of my days.
Granada Report's viewers have donated thousands toward the 50,000 needed by the family to buy the arm and keep it permanently by Adam's side.
What can you say to such generous people who actually don't understand what their money is actually going to do to my brother's life? Hopefully anyway, if we manage to raise the money, because this arm will give Adam his independence, but not only that, it makes us as a family be able to create memories that we've never been able to do before.
They're now halfway to their target and know they have many supporters of their own. Anne O'Connor, ITV News, Crosby.
That is just brilliant. Well done, Adam and Alex.
Yeah, I'm so happy for Adam and his family.
And there's more information about that fundraising campaign to get Adam his own robotic arm on our website right now. That's at itv.com/Granada. Now, there's exactly a month to Christmas, but if you're struggling to get into the festive spirit, we might be able to help you.
Yeah, our very own weather expert, Joe, has found possibly the region's most Christmassy spot this evening with the return of Lightopia to Heaton Park in Manchester.
So, Joe, is this the closest we'll get to a white Christmas, or is it too early to say, Joe?
I'm not going to be drawn on that, Elaine, not yet. But it is a very frosty evening here in Heaton Park. I have never seen the place so beautifully lit up before. Lightopia has landed here for a third year. A fantasy, an illuminated, beautiful fantasy world all ready for Christmas. And you can come and visit until the beginning of January. But how do you even begin to put something as spectacular as this together? We need to talk to creator Ian Zhang, joins me now. Ian, tell us about Lightopia.
Well, I'm so happy to stand in front of the Heaton Hall to present you another grand edition of Lightopia. Well, Lightopia inspired by the Chinese Lantern Festival, which have 1,000 years of history by the Tang Dynasty. So we have thousands of handcrafted, handmade lanterns programmed with latest technology. So give you the interactive and immersive experience here. And this year, everything is brand new, never seen before. So we have, for example, we have a 240-meter long dragon down there. And you can see this fantasy Christmas, which we have the good fight the evil. Down the valley there, We have a large earthly flower, which is interactive. People can, with the drums, send the lights up to the trees. So there are loads of things to see here.
Fair few light bulbs as well, Ian, I would say. How many do you think?
Easily over 2 million light bulbs.
Over 2 million.
Yes.
Can they withstand some rather lively weather, which we're going to have this weekend?
Yes, these lanterns are very strong, made with steel and silk. They can stand strong wind. I would say probably stronger than some of the trees.
Brilliant, that's great news. Okay, thank you very much. Here's the weather.
Okay.
Oh, I love a hot shower and a cold day, me.
And a minute shorter than usual.
What a legend.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
We have our first named storm of the season, Storm Arwen, coming across the UK for tomorrow. And for us in the northwest of England, it means some spells of heavy showery rain, but in particular, very strong winds. Gusty gale force winds will develop in the Irish Sea and up on higher ground overnight tonight, and they'll be with us through tomorrow and particularly on Saturday when it'll be really windy across the whole of the UK. In the mix as well, we've got some winteriness, so there'll be a bit of sleet and snow up on higher ground as we go through tonight and particularly tomorrow night and into Saturday. The details then, well, it's a deep low pressure system. It's been named as Arwen, our first storm of the season. It sweeps down the North Sea as we go through tonight, and from midnight we'll begin to see those very strong gusty winds building for exposed western coasts around the Isle of Man and up on higher ground in the Lake District for our part of the world tonight. Showery rain moves in, but initially tonight will start cold and frosty. Temperatures will rise though as that rain moves in and winds increase in strength. On to tomorrow and the sun times. First of all, it will be rising at 7:56, setting tomorrow afternoon just before 4 o'clock. Quite a wet start to the day. Showery rain pushes southwards, eastwards and clears the region during the afternoon, in fact, with a bit of brightness later on, some sunshine, but very strong winds. If you're driving on any of the region's higher routes, or of course you're along the coastline, it is going to be very windy tomorrow, so do take care. Other than that, temperatures are around average. And as we look towards Saturday, a dusting of snow up on higher ground and strong winds across the board. Bye-bye.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Oh, hello.
Get him a towel.
Joe, thank you. Well, finally, we are really sorry to say that it's the end of the world.
What? Well, don't be too concerned. We're talking about the 10 by 10 metre inflatable Earth at Pennington Flash in Lee, which has now been deflated because of those strong winds forecast by Joe over the next few days. It was supposed to be there until Sunday.
But watch out for it at Salford Quays from next Friday, if the weather, of course, play ball. For now, see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.